All right. So next up after lunch, we have our zero waste policy and solutions bucket. And so to kick us off with a circularity spotlight is Lael Giebel, who's from KnowBe4, and she's going to talk about some of the business and zero waste things. Advance, go back. You can also use space.
Perfect. Thank you. Hello. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Like she said, I'm Lael Giebel from KnowBe4. And you're probably wondering, what is KnowBe4? We are a cybersecurity awareness training platform, which means we're essentially a tech company with no actual product, no physical product. We have about 2,100 employees across the globe. About 1,300 of those are in the US, and then the rest are in our 10 international companies. So we're in 11 countries altogether. The bulk of us are in the US, and we're headquartered in Clearwater, Florida. So that's the Tampa Bay area. And if you look at that orange dot there, that's our office. It's about 0.2 miles from the ocean, and those green dots are the larger, more well-known wetlands that I just pulled out of my head. It's honestly covered in wetlands. And so you essentially can't throw a stone from our office without hitting a wetlands, or really a stone in that whole area without hitting wetlands. So that's who we are. That's where we are. And I'm going to talk to you about our zero waste journey, and then also some challenges, and finally, some of our things that we've learned along the way. So I was hired in 2021, and the week before I was hired by KnowBe4, I got certified as a true zero waste advisor. So the timing was perfect. So one of the very first things I did was create our zero waste plan based completely on the true format. So I'm a huge fan of true. We looked at our baseline. We had a 21% diversion rate when we started. So our target is 80%. And if you are familiar with True, then you know that as a company, we are not certified by True because they require a 90% diversion rate. But both Sheila Sullivan and I are certified True advisors. So we're huge fans of True. Okay, so how did we implement this? We started by taking a look at what we were doing and what other folks were doing. And we saw that Google, when they implemented what they call a centralized waste station, or we call them eco bins, when they implemented that in their offices, they saw a 50% increase in recycling. So we thought that sounded good. So that was one of the very first things we did. And if you look at the bins there, there's waste on the left side, and the center is for plastic bags. Now, our waste haulers do not accept plastic bags, but we just manually, every so often, collect them up and take them over to a Nextrex provider or Nextrex pickup, and then they upcycle those into outdoor equipment. And then on the right is our mixed recycling. We also went through and reduced consumption. So we digitized all of our paperwork. We essentially don't really have paper in the offices anymore. We replaced all of our disposable dishes in our break rooms with reusable dishes. And then very recently we changed and we replaced our company swag. We do a lot of swag and gifts for our employees, and we replaced all of that with digital gift cards. And then also very early on, we created that courtesy recycling plan for our employees. So we have an entire closet in one of our floors in Clearwater in our headquarters, just dedicated to employee recycling. So we take e-waste. Of course, we recycle our own e-waste, but we also take employee e-waste, office supplies, reusable bags, batteries, printers, kind of the whole gamut. And then finally, and the last one there, I talk about reuse. So that company swag I was talking about, we have a whole section dedicated to our company swag. So anybody who no longer wants the t-shirt or the tumbler or whatever they have, they can put it there. And then the rest of us just go shopping whenever we want and get free swag. We also have a grassroots composting program. So we've heard a lot about compost over the last 2 days. Probably a lot of what you picked up is that we do not have a good solution in Florida, and particularly in our region, we have no industrial, municipal, or even private composting. There is Renewable does do composting, but they're outside of our jurisdiction. So we basically what we do with our coffee grounds is we compost them, we collect them up each week. Sheila collects them up each week. It's about 30 to 40 pounds of coffee grounds a week. And then we've partnered with an urban farm in Clearwater, and they come by and pick it up, and they use it in their composting and in their vermiculture. We are also hoping to pilot another composting thing for the rest of our food waste, basically all the lunches and everything that we have in our break rooms. Fingers crossed, but this is something that we've been grappling with for 4 years now, and we haven't gotten there yet. So I'm not sure if we're going to get there, but this summer is hopefully we'll have a pilot program. This is sort of one of the fun things. I want to talk about one of the fun things that we do. Early on, like when I started, actually, that banner that you see in that top left corner, that was hanging on our 12-story building. So just to give you an idea of how large that banner was. And it was folded up in a closet. It had been there for 2 years by the time I saw it. And they didn't know what to do with it. They just didn't want to pay to dump it. And so I said, why don't we make reusable bags out of it? So that's what that inset is. That's a reusable bag. And I took it to, again, a local seamstress in Clearwater, not maybe a mile or two from our office. She upcycled the entire banner into reusable bags. And then each one of our employees got one of those reusable bags. And it became like a piece of history for them, because many of them not only remembered when that banner was hanging on the building, but they also could pick themselves out of that crowd shot behind our CEO, Stu. So they're like, that's me. So it was wildly popular. And then we decided to just keep it going. So now we have what we call a banner bag program. And whenever we do like conferences or any of those types of things, they collect up any banners that they can't reuse and they bring them back to me and I get them upcycled again. So like that center picture, those are pole banners at a conference. Those are now reusable bags. Sheila has one in our hotel, actually. And then the one on the right, that was actually an airplane banner that was flying around the city of Clearwater the same time that we had that one hanging from the building, and that's also been upcycled into bags. Okay, employee engagement. This is by far my favorite topic. I'm going to try to rein myself in because I could talk about this the rest of the talk. But it is our secret sauce. It's kind of our secret weapon to why our zero waste program works as well as it does. I mean, I think that's what we're all talking about today is people, right? People is what makes it happen. So I won't talk about all of this, but I will mention that we have a pretty healthy employee engagement, employee resource group, which is called Earth-be4, like KnowBe4, Earth-be4. We have over 75 members, and most of those are from Clearwater or from the US, but we do have members from 9 of our 11 international offices. And since I started tracking cleanups 2 years ago, we've had 966 volunteers from all 11 countries do 57 organized cleanups, but also hundreds more individual cleanups. And they've cleaned up over 7,500 pounds of trash. Now that 7,500 pounds does not count towards our zero waste metrics, excuse me, but it does count, right? I mean, we've heard it again and again today and yesterday, how much cleanup matters, not only for the environment, but it also creates that mind shift. And then that mind shift creates that behavioral shift. And that behavioral shift not only comes to the offices, but also goes home with them. And so every time we do this, we're galvanizing folks. We also have a very robust employee training program that, again, I think really leads to why, or helps us with our successful program. I'm not going to talk about all of it, but I'll mention one that I think is a little bit unique. We do a lot of videos. So that grainy photo in the bottom right corner there, that's what our videos look like. They usually star Sheila and me, or whoever we can pull out from the office when they're in that day and we're recording. Or sometimes they're animated and I'll just do the voiceover, but they're all 60 seconds or less, and they're all targeted at one topic, telling people how to recycle correctly or how to not recycle incorrectly, or whatever it is, whatever the message is. And then this plays in several different formats. It plays at meetings, it plays on our intranet, it plays several different ways. And so folks get this kind of cheesy, goofy video with us being silly, and it sticks in their minds. And before I move off from employee engagement, I swear I will move on. Every quarter we have a challenge. It's a month-long challenge, and it's always educational. It's aimed obviously at the environment, cleaning, whatever, it's about improving the environment, and we gamify it. So this last one was Waste-Free February, and I have a bunch of really cool stats from what happened from that 1 month, but just one of them is that through several waste-free initiatives, nearly 800 pounds of waste was diverted from the waste stream just in February, and that was all gamified. That was just sort of for fun. And again, those numbers don't count towards our metrics, but again, they count, right? They educated those folks. There's going to be a behavioral shift. It's going to go home with them. It's going to go to work with them. And so it all counts. Measuring progress. Okay, so these are cool stats, but there's also, I don't want to say some frustration, but there's some backstory to some of them. But I'll just go through them. So we've increased our recycling by over 50%, which is yay. We're so happy about that. We've reduced our plastic bag waste by over 90%. And that's just from those, when we switched over from the the individual trash bins to our eco bins. So we used to have 800 individual trash bins at our offices. And then we switched to the eco bins, and we saved 90% in plastic bags from that. And that's not counting all the plastic bags that we actually recycle every week. And then we also, just through our elimination, we've eliminated about 15,500 pounds each year in terms of no longer ordering paper, no longer ordering those break room dishes and all that sort of thing. And then I'm going to slow down here. I'm definitely going to emphasize the next two stats, and there's a reason for it, but I'll tell you the reason later. There's a punchline. So we've decreased waste per employee by 27% in just 1 year. And we've reduced our overall waste by 3% in that same year, even though our in-office headcount went up by 35%. So I'll just say it again real quick. We've decreased our waste per employee by 27% in 1 year, and overall waste by 3%, even though our in-office headcount went up 35%. So that sounds really amazing. Unfortunately, well, anyway, there's a punchline and we'll get to it. So I'm going to talk about some obstacles. The first one, I know that I'm preaching to the choir with this one, wish cycling. This is one of the biggest issues that I had to deal with when I first started at KnowBe4. So that was, we had a huge educational campaign on this, because we didn't have a sustainability program before I started. So they were just kind of winging it. And we had a whole bunch of really well-meaning employees who threw everything that they thought should be recycled into our recycle bins. And as we've discussed over the last 2 days, we know that a lot of things aren't actually recyclable. So there was a ton of contamination. So we went through that. Another obstacle, the next two are external factors. One is the lack of composting infrastructure. Like I mentioned earlier, we don't have municipal or industrial composting in our area. That's why we had to do that grassroots program with the coffee grounds. The other is that glass is not accepted by our recyclers. So the unfortunate thing is that they do accept glass from their residential customers, but not from their commercial. So it's frustrating. And we know that glass is really heavy, so that's working against us. Challenges. Okay, so first challenge is ongoing contamination. I probably don't need to talk too much about that, but we just have an ongoing education campaign. Like as soon as we handle one issue, there's another issue and there's another issue. So we're always handling contamination for recycling. The next one, so I feel like our metrics no longer sort of reflect the full picture, and that's, I'm going back to those stats now. So we've seen a reduction in overall waste, a pretty impressive reduction in overall waste, and yet we did not hit our 80% target this year. We were off by 5 or 6%. So when I saw that, I said, well, maybe our education is actually working. Like maybe people are reducing their waste, right? It could be. And so that's when we went and looked at those numbers, and that's what we discovered. They are reducing. So people are using far fewer plastic bottles. We've asked them to bring their tumblers, and they're really bringing their tumblers. They're not printing paper. They're no longer throwing contamination into the recycle bin. So there's a whole bunch of really good stuff going on there, but the metrics don't quite reflect it well. The other thing is that reduction in swag and gifts. So we used to order just tons of boxes of swag and gifts, and all of these would be shipped, right? Carbon emissions and everything. They're all arriving in these ginormous cardboard boxes, and each one is individually plastic wrapped. And then everybody gets one, whether they want one or not. And then we always have to order extras for just in case. So then they're all sitting on our shelves. There's just a ton of stuff. And all of that is gone. Now it's a digital card. It's not even a plastic card. It's just a digital gift card. And so all of that consumption is gone, but we don't know how to capture that in our metrics either, because we want to be accurate about it. We don't want to say, oh, well, you know, 5,000 pounds is now gone, because they weren't, we know everybody wasn't throwing their stuff away, but something was happening with it. So full disclosure, we don't have all the answers. So if anybody has any ideas for either one of these things in terms of capturing metrics, we would love to hear from you. But I do want to leave you with lessons learned. I want to leave you on a good note. First, those centralized waste stations did work. So we did not see the 50% increase in recycling, but we saw a 17% increase. So yay, that was really good news. Take that as a win. Next, there's no such thing as too much communication. I could talk about this for another 20 minutes, and I'll try not to, because I know I only have a few minutes, but basically just communicate in as many ways as you can, and as many mediums as you can, and in as many different ways as you can, because people retain information differently. They look for information differently. They check different sites. So we use our intranet, we use email, we use posters, we use announcements in our company meetings. We use all sorts of different venues, and still we feel like it's not enough communication. So communicate. Next, kind of the same thing, vary your educational message and kind of what I just said, like vary what you say and how you say it and talk about different things at different times, because you'll hit different people in different ways. Persistence pays off. I'll say this really quickly. My example is actually with renewables. So I talked about composting earlier, and there is one company that does private composting, and they're not in our area. I was just outside their boundary, but I knew about them and I love them. And so I reached out to the owner, Xavier, and he said, you're not in my area. And so then I just kept reaching out. And I don't want to say that I was harassing him, but I just continued reaching out and reaching out and reaching out. And after 6 months, finally he was like, "Uncle, I give up. I'm still not in your area, but I will continue to collect in my area. And then I'll have my driver just go up to where you are and collect for you, and there'll be an upcharge." And I was fine with that, and everything was going to work out wonderfully, except then we had a budget change at work. So unfortunately it didn't go through, but the moral of the story is persistence. And then creativity is your friend. And you saw some of that, right? Like we had to do the grassroots composting, we did the reusable bags, but basically get as creative as you can. Creativity is your friend. It's a wonderful tool. And I'll leave you with a shameless plug. I do have a book out now called Sustainability is for Everyone that's aimed at organizations. And then I just last week submitted my manuscript to my publisher for my second book, which is Ancient Wisdom, Modern Sustainability, which is aimed at individuals. And oddly enough, a lot of what I talked about today was in my published book. And a lot of what everyone else talked about is in my new book. So, so together it kind of covers this whole conference. But thank you. I think I actually made it in enough time. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Lael. We have some time for Sheila. Do you have anything to add? We have a few minutes. It says 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh, I just like powered through that. And there's some time left.
No, there's okay, so
Yeah.
you're right on.
I'm teasing you, yeah.
Do we have any questions? I don't know. Is it inspirational? Oh, you have to come over here, Tyron. Yeah, it's okay. I know you're new. This is our style. You walk all the way. Oh, but real quick, we did that in Pittsburgh, centralized collection bin.
Yeah.
And actually, it was health implications were a big part of it because every time they had something to recycle or whatever it was, or I guess
then they had to get up, right?
They get up, and then that's good, right?
Exactly.
You have a sedentary job. So yeah, they removed all desk side bins, and they saw it went up like 60%, like in diversion or something. People participated more. Hold on, real quick, Tyron.
That was one of my cells, actually. There was a good, because it was, people weren't in love with it at first. And I was like, yeah, but the health implications. And then you had to get up and move your legs and clear your brain.
First and foremost, very impressive and inspiring. Well done.
Thank you.
As far as your partners for collection from the waste that's gathered from your campuses,
Yeah.
Do you outsource only to specialists deal with waste management, or do you do the TerraCycle for box collection? How does it work?
So for our main collection, like our main mixed recycling and everything, we just use our local providers. Okay. And oddly enough, we have two office buildings in Clearwater, and they have different providers. They're on the street, like not even a block away from each other, but we have different providers. So that's how we do our main like mixed use recycling.
And then we manually do the plastic bags. And then the stuff that we do on behalf of
Employees, like we partner with Chico Bags in California.
Chico, California.
Yeah. So that they take our reusable bags. And then we have e-waste providers that are collectors that come in.
Ooh, good question. Thank you.
Is it on? Oh, no. It clicked on. Sorry. Our Zoom audience, yeah. Can you hear me now? Zoom?
Yes.
You're a technology company, not to get too much into this. There's different standards when it comes to e-waste. So you have the R2 certification, you have the e-steward certification. I'm hoping that the providers that are doing the e-waste recycling or e-steward certification, or could you talk just briefly about that, or what the difference is and why it's important?
Oh my gosh, you are putting me on the spot.
Sorry.
So we do, yes, indeed, ours are certified, like you said. And as I understand it, the main difference is one is not one is just recycling and not necessarily in the most eco-minded way, in the most eco-friendly way. And the other one has to be certified and has, you know, they have to answer to different organizations in terms of the disgusting waste that we were talking about earlier today and yesterday. I think Mike was talking about it. So yeah, so that's the difference. And ours is certified.
Okay. Cool, cool. One more question, or do we have one from Zoom? Kelly? Jennings, right? Okay.
Hey, I really loved your comment about tracking waste prevention, right? And I think that this is a huge problem. And prior to this current situation, was talking with folks at EPA about helping us figure out how to better quantify waste that's not even created in the first place. So I would love to talk with you after that, or ask anybody in this audience. I have put together a little thought exercise in a Google Doc that I'm welcome to share with people, trying to figure out the different metrics that we might be able to track all the way back to extraction, right? Because a lot of manufacturers don't even know where their raw material is coming from. And as a conservation organization, that's what we care about.
Right.
So anyway, that's a very good point.
Thank you.
And
so
it's
much.
not fair that you can't count it. Like you can't see it.
Thank you. I agree. I'd love to get you out.
A shameless plug, Race to Zero Waste puts on what's called Zero Waste Month and the month of October. And we would love to partner with you on that venture. You mentioned the Waste Free February.
Yeah.
It's a global digital campaign where folks, they track their actions or they post using the hashtag Zero Waste Month on social media. And we do expert interviews throughout the month of October and other fun stuff. So it'd be great to continue that conversation.
I would love to, and I think we're doing Plastic Free Fridays in October, so it'd be a perfect tie-in. And I did want to mention,
You know, we talked about digital waste earlier and we're going to have our first digital declutter week in July. So we're excited about that. So I'm going to tap into a lot of what Paul talked about earlier. So yeah, I'd love to partner with you.
Great. Thanks, Lael. Sorry, microphone was on.